I had to open up a cold soda. I didn't want to crack it open while I was on camera.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. And boy, do we have a great show planned tonight. So obviously, if you're not living under a rock, you've seen that California is on fire. Hollywood, Palisades, some pretty key areas. And I've got a lot of questions. I've got questions about how does the geoengineering tie into this? What's up with all the tunnels between the Getty Museum and the Playboy Mansion? And does this relate to human trafficking stuff before Trump gets in? Is it a land grab like what we saw in Maui? There are so many questions that I have. And tonight I actually have two fantastic women as guests on the show today, Tracy Derwin and Stephanie Perucci, two women that were pivotal in exposing the corruption with the Maui fires, with what happened there, digging into the smart city plan, so many of these much larger globalist agendas, and seeing how that tied into just the raping, the pillaging, and the murdering of innocent people to seize their assets, which unfortunately is the theme of life these days. It's the battle of we versus them, and we the people across the world versus this small group of people that are, who knows what they're doing, worshiping Satan and, only God knows what, literally. So it's going to be a really good show. And again, I've got so many questions that I can't answer, and I've tried to answer, and I've got a lot of research behind, what I've kind of come to and arrived at with my perspective. But between the three of us, I think that we're going to have a very, very good conversation. Before we dive into that, a few quick messages. First off, if you're watching on Rumble, thank you for supporting a free speech platform. If you're on YouTube, you should be on Rumble, where I can talk about things more than what you're going to see on tonight's show. The other thing is, make sure that if you're on Rumble, you hit that green follow button or the like, whatever platform you're on. Make sure you hit that like or thumbs up just to help this content reach more people. The other thing is just a quick message about one of our sponsors. So the very first sponsor I ever had with Man in America was Noble Gold. And they literally were pivotal in allowing me to become an independent podcaster and independent media, which now we are the media. I mean, now a lot of my shows are getting more views than CNN, which is great. I love seeing it because I've got a very honest agenda, which is to try to bring you the truth, the best that I can. And I'm wrong sometimes, I'll tell you that, but that's my purpose here, is to try to bring you this information. And again, Noble Gold is the company that allowed me to really get this started and get going with this. And so maybe you've been considering, maybe thinking about, okay, maybe it's time to move some of our IRA over into precious metals, and your friends are talking about it, and you heard Man in America talk about it. But look, if you are hesitant, if you're on the fence, give them a call. We got a website set up, Gold with Seth. Takes you right here that you can fill out this form. You get a free gold and silver investment guide, or you just give them a call at 626-654-1906. And look, I used to work in the precious metals industry, in a previous lifetime, it feels, from where things are now. And I can tell you there's a lot of shady stuff going on, but Noble Gold and Colin Plume, the CEO, these are people that I trust. I trust them enough to recommend them to you. I trust them enough to recommend my own friends and family. So again, that's goldwithseth.com. All right, let's go ahead and bring on our guests tonight and just dive into this discussion. So I've got now here Stephanie and Tracy. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me on such short notice today for tonight's show. It's great to have you both here.
Thanks for having us, Seth.
So I guess, Tracy, you're the first person to speak, so I'll start with you. Give the audience just a quick background of yourself and specifically, how you got pulled into the whole Maui fire thing and why I now view you as experts on globalist weather controlled fires for land grabs. Like that's kind of your title I could put on your name card. So, Tracy, we'll start with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Seth, for shedding light on this very important topic. I'm always taken aback when I hear someone say I'm an expert in this because it just happened by accident. I was a beauty content creator on YouTube. I talked about makeup and makeup brushes mainly. And the wake up call, the moment where that changed, my life changed dramatically, was August 8th of 2023 when the town of Lahaina burned down. I'm from Oahu, so that is where I was born and raised. So that really hit home. I mean, I remember my mom telling me, "Oh, Lahaina burned," and Lahaina is everyone knows Lahaina. It's the ancient capital. And when I heard the entire town burned, I just knew there was something not right. And as the news rolled out, everything just didn't add up. Yes, there's severe incompetence, but there was something else nefarious going. I knew it right away. And I was just in the beginning stages of my awakening to the truth and what was going on. I had like my spiritual awakening about a year previous to that. So I feel like my eyes were open and ready to see the truth. And I just kept digging in there. And I did a video on the fires, and I did another one a few days later. And those videos went viral a day or so after. And I was getting like 200, 300, 400,000 views, whereas I usually get maybe 1,000 on a good day. And from there, I just got this overwhelming amount of support saying, "We believe you. We want you to continue." And I thought I was going to be called crazy and I was just going to, go back to my beauty content. But I never did a beauty video since then. And since then, I've just been immersed in understanding. I just had to know what happened. Like, how did this happen? I just could not believe it. And when you're from an area and you see people that remind you of your family and your friends, suffering, losing their lives, losing their homes, running from the fire, it just really got to me. And from then, I just kept following other tragedies, and I found out they have so much in common. And just digging into the political and historical aspect. And then about a year ago, I brought Shane on, and he has more of the physics technical background that allowed me to bring that aspect because I wasn't getting that part, the DEW thing and the weather modification aspect. He was already studying that from the 90s, I believe. So, combining those, I guess, specialties, we were able to unravel and uncover a lot. And I've been reporting on that ever since. And now, I live in Los Angeles. So this is very close to home, what's going on now. I mean, when I go outside, ashes fall on me, my eyes start burning. I'm not in an area that's going to burn, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's just unbelievable. This one is different because there are so many. I mean, yes, Southern California is no stranger to fires, but they're popping up so just like in a matter of hours, you'll see another one. And it's just, I'm starting to get that feeling again of like, I have to really know what's going on. Every tragedy is a little different. And this one is definitely something that I'm still trying to figure out, but there is certainly enough evidence for me to say that this has been planned. There is advanced technology, and there is certainly geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol injection involved. So, yeah, that is very recent, but I'm confident to say that we have evidence that those things are going on right now.
And I look forward to digging into that. Stephanie, go ahead and give us your. You've been a guest on the show before. I think we were talking about. Was it the Maui fires that we were covering? I think because obviously it was after that. It wasn't
Yeah, we were
during the.
talking about Lahaina, and it was right when Asheville got attacked.
Yes,
And
that's true. Okay.
yeah, and so we were going through the Sound the Alarm playbook and saying, oh, well, here are some of the here were some of the anomalies and red flags we saw in Asheville that made us think long before we had some of the satellite images and some of the evidence we have now, we thought something fishy is going on here. Well, why did the storm change directions and stuff like that? And so the reason I started writing books about weather engineering and the globalist land grabs is because with Tracy and several other people who were independently investigating Lahaina, we started to see way too many of the same things going on. And originally, I was interested in Lahaina because I had actually lived in Hawaii for a little while. And so I felt it was very special. But I had someone who was stuck on Front Street who was very dear to me. And she explained that human rotisserie with the police blockades. And I said, that's sick. How did that happen? Where are the dispatch reports? Who ordered that? And so I just had questions about my friend, sort of like Tracy. And that's where we began over the last, I guess, 17 months or so, putting pieces together to reveal to us this is happening all over the world. And some of the things going on in Asheville and Palisade and Lahaina and other places around the world, it's the same playbook.
It is, and that's the thing too that I've come to in researching is that you look for patterns, right? You see one thing, it's like, okay, maybe it's a one-off, but when you see that same pattern repeated, it's like, okay, I'm seeing something here. And this is what I'm looking forward to getting in this discussion with both of you, because when I'm looking at this situation, comparing it to Maui as an example, okay, Maui was set to be kind of, as I think as Stephanie, you described it as like the Las Vegas strip of Hawaii. They want to turn it into this big commercial property, casinos and resorts and everything. But you also saw that the kind of the mega elites like the Zuckerbergs, the Oprahs, those kinds of characters that they were untouched. It seemed like it was really about this land grab from the commoners, right? That similar to slaughtering the Native Americans to seize this particular piece of land, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at what's happening in California, like it's the Getty Museum, right? It's
Right.
like I was looking before at the different actors and actresses and are losing properties. Like I think Jeff Bridges was one of the ones. Ricky Lake, James Woods, and a lot of very very wealthy, prominent Paris Hilton. And they lost a massive beachfront mansion, and so these are people that aren't the commoners that refuse to sell their land because it's ancestral. They want to hold on to it. And so that's why it was a little bit more difficult for me to look at this and think, okay, well, you see these indicators of the setup, right? Obviously, they're not doing what they should be doing to control the burns. They're not doing maintain the forest floor, having the fire buffer zones, or the things they do to maintain the forest. There's obviously all the major issues with water and the fact that whether it's Newsom or the mayor of LA, that there's been no water available. So you can see, then of course, the insurance. Okay, magically, a lot of the insurance companies, I think State Farm's one of them, they've canceled the fire insurance kind of very closely to this happening. So you can see a lot of those things that make you think, oh, this is some sort of much more, kind of bigger picture. This is planned. But then you look at the fact that, these are the perceived elites, but maybe it's actually not so. Maybe these are just the people that get a mansion, but they're still just as controlled and enslaved as we are, maybe even more so. And so I guess, how do the two of you make sense of this and just jump in and just, in terms of our conversation tone, interrupt me, I'll interrupt you. Let's just make this a really engaging back and forth conversation.
Okay, well, I can give you a little background on the Palisades. I've spent a decent amount of time there. It's also, this has gone back to Malibu. I actually know someone who saved their house a month ago and lost their house today, which, I mean, Malibu's been hit. I don't understand exactly the different areas right now, but it really shocked me when I heard that the Palisades and these multi-million dollar mansions and these prominent people are losing their properties. One good thing I just want to sneak in is that in a way that is good because I feel like these people are going to stand up for their rights. They're not going to just, give their properties over. They're going to get what they deserve and they're going to ask for answers. They already are. The mayor has been asked, why did you cut the fire funding? Why did you send the equipment that we need to the Ukraine when we need it here? Because now there's a shortage of firefighters and equipment.
Right.
And so I don't know exactly. It's a really bold move to
Yeah.
burn down these houses that are so valuable. Some people do have their insurance, but the people that lost their insurance were often forced to go on a state-funded insurance plan, which I heard is extremely expensive, but they didn't have a choice. So I don't know how that is going to plan out
Yeah,
because
and the same
then
with
it's
the
up to the
electric
state.
too.
Yeah, so it's up to the state whether they want to pay and how much they're going to pay. I do think a lot of people, the ones that are older, are going to sell their properties because it's simply too much to rebuild at this point, and whoever buys those properties is going to save a ton of money. So in that sense, it makes sense. A property that's 5 million, they can probably get it for one. Um, and I do think there is something about this area. It's a very exclusive area. Like when I go there, I kind of feel like an outsider. It's very nice. It's very secure. It's perfectly manicured. Everyone has a housekeeper, a gardener, an assistant. So maybe there was something about that people didn't like. I don't know, but it's time will tell. Also, the mayor was in Africa during this time, and she came back, I think, yesterday, similar to how Governor Green and the fire chief were out of town in Lahaina. I feel like that is part of it, but I don't understand fully because Silmar is more of a working class area and that's being burned right now. And then Altadena is a more middle class area. Pasadena is a little bit nicer if you go more south. So it's almost like it's anyone, a lower class area, a middle class, or a very exclusive area. I don't feel like they're really discerning between who gets burned out. I can't
Yeah.
make sense of it.
Well, you can't make sense of it, but it completely coincides with our previous theories that this doesn't have to do with Hawaiians. It doesn't have to do with Californians. This is a globalist, this is an international sort of coup or a bunch of gangsters that are working at a much, much higher level than local government. I'm elated to see that it doesn't just, similar to Lahaina and Asheville, hit working class people, because that makes it hurt worse, honestly. But I'm also happy to see that people who aren't digging into the bigger themes are saying, well, wait a minute, 300 firefighters were laid off because they didn't take the jabs, or they
Mm.
were doing DEI hiring at the fire department and based on sexual orientation, which has nothing to do with firefighting. Or there were all these environmental pieces of legislation that were pushed through, such as the smelt fish protection that thwarted
Oh, God.
waterways, which is the same thing as what happened in Lahaina. We don't have water to fight these fires. And so, on some level, I think the surface complaints or the surface observations people have, we can leverage to help them get to the next level of awakening and understanding of what's really happening here. And so we can talk a little bit more about some of the theories that we worked on through Sound the Alarm and that now seem to be playing out with, smart city developments, et cetera.
Well, because I know that
Right.
LA is kind of slated to be a smart city. I think it's by 2028. I think I'd seen that it was, and so that's obviously one of the big keys right there. But so I want
And the
to,
Olympics in 2028 too.
which is also strange, right? And it's like now I think for a lot of people, maybe they look at this and think, oh, it's just these just fires. It's California. California always has fires. But what you realize, you look back and it's like, okay, why are there melted engine blocks, and I've never seen melted, tire rims and all the, the strange anomalies. A lot of stuff actually that, Stephanie, we looked at in our video together about Lahaina and seeing why are there animals like frozen in time, like almost like
Right.
Pompeii, right? It's like
Mhm.
it's like what really happened there. But
Or
one of
palm
the
fronds,
yes,
like
yes.
things that normally burn up easily. Yeah.
Yes. And so one question I have, this is more of a philosophical question, I guess, is that do either of you feel like with this, especially when you look at the idea of Hollywood burning, right? Um, I would say that Hollywood is one of Satan's key strongholds in this agenda to destroy humanity, and destroy us through the cultural subversion and through the dark messaging and bringing these evil ideas in. So do either of you have the perspective that maybe this is somewhat of like a Sodom and Gomorrah type situation, even if it was caused by, say, these elite globalists? Like, in my opinion, they're still under God's plan, right? They're not above God. George Soros isn't writing some script for Earth that God hasn't approved, right? So, do you either of you get that sense that this is a warning to Hollywood, to just the people that are using this mechanism to destroy humanity?
I it's hard to say because until I spoke to you, I saw it as more of the inside, the people that are in control here as trying to take more control, not so
Mm,
much an outside force trying to destroy Hollywood. But I do know a lot of people in Hollywood that are completely oblivious to the worship. I mean, I did work at a studio for a little bit. Yes, there is a lot of that very evil, pushing of agenda. I think a lot of people just don't know. They might never really know. But some are definitely involved in that and very instrumental. I watched your video on hip hop and the cabal, and that really opened my eyes and it made a lot of sense. But as you explained, that meeting was a very small a group of people, right? That really knew what was going to happen. Everyone beneath them was probably oblivious to the bigger picture and whether they're, very close to the top, there's just a very select few that were actually pulling the strings. So it's really hard to say. The Palisades isn't the only area where there are a lot of entertainment types. There's tons of different areas. They're on Manhattan Beach, all sorts of parts of the state, but it could be part of it. But I don't think that's the main reason. I think it's more about the land grab, the control, the fear that people are now in. And I think they might use this kind of in the way that what happened in 2020. Like I got an alarm saying the fire's coming, like in West Hills. I'm like, West Hills is not around here. The whole county got that. And then they say, oops, we didn't mean to send it to you. I
Mhm.
don't know. It's like they're trying to scare us into something to do something. I don't know. Only time will tell. But I do feel like there's this energy in the air where people are just on edge. They closed schools. When I drive, people are just honking and just there's this really negative vibe in the air right now. And I almost feel like they could even layer on another level of chaos, like
Yeah.
social unrest. I don't know. I hope
On
not.
January 20th, maybe?
I mean, it is the timing of this is very unusual because January is not fire season. Don't listen to Newsom. He says it is, but it's not. It's not normally when we have these kind of fires. It's not when we have Santa Ana winds that normally comes in October, November. So they're saying it's the Santa Ana winds in January. I felt that wind was very unnatural. So, yeah, I think the timing, there is another aspect that might be part of it, but I know Trump has said that sanctuary cities and sanctuary states are going to start losing federal funding. And I did
Mhm.
notice Gavin Newsom, he declared a state of emergency very early. I think once the second fire started, so that releases federal funding. Maybe he's trying to get that while he can. I'm not sure. And California, this last election really swung red. it's almost a 50-50 state, which I don't think people realize, but we're kind of like secretive about it because it's not socially acceptable to voice your more conservative views. But this is a really layered problem, and I don't feel like it's over. And I've been hearing a lot of people saying just like, watch out what's going on. We don't know exactly what it is, but I do kind of feel something is brewing that might be layered on top of this. But
Yeah, and California doesn't have the history that the Hawaiians have of over 100 years of getting their land seized and their rights, trampled. And so I feel also sort of this tension, like something's going to explode. There's actually a pretty naive or optimistic part of me that thinks this is going to facilitate an incredible awakening, like the last straw. People will see all of the incompetence in the local and state government. And now they don't have insurance. And a lot of people in Lahaina did have insurance. A lot of people in California lost their insurance. They're going to be revolting. And they do not have the ohana or the community or the support of their neighbors like the people in Lahaina had. I think they're going to, once they realize they're not going to get money from FEMA because it was sent to the Ukraine, I think we're going to see some more American cowboy response. We're going to see a lot of people who've been maybe not as bold about their beliefs, maybe not even as diligent about learning about the world around them, now start to figure stuff out and connect some dots and awaken. In terms of, is this God's wrath or Sodom and Gomorrah? I also, Seth, have heard people ask that question. I tend not to see God as extremely, I think he's extremely pissed about a lot of things. I think it breaks his heart. But I also think that just in the same way, he allows us to go through absolutely horrific pain. And then we come out on the other side and we say, I learned a lot of lessons through that. I am more awakened and more purposeful, and I sleep better and I'm more conscious. I think sometimes he has to let us self-destruct in certain ways. And right now, what we are seeing in California, what we saw in Asheville and Lahaina, of course, among many other events. This is in some ways, this is part of the necessary refining of an entire society that has gotten very lazy. And it's a very self-indulgent society. I don't think that means that God is going to take some lightning and start, poking us. But I do think that when I'm reading my Bible, I'm continually reminded to repent. But God is not grabbing the back of my neck and throwing me on the floor and telling me to repent. I think this is an awakening like that. I think this is an awakening for our country to repent because things have gotten out of control. The king, the ruler, whoever's, commissioning the Tower of Babel, so to speak, out of control. We have way too much power concentrated among too few people. And now we have to, take up arms, bad analogy maybe, but we do. We need to now get very serious about taking back power, not allowing it to be concentrated in the hands of people who are incinerating cities.
Yeah, good point. Or maybe say, pick up our swords, right? There's a more
Better.
kind of right. So you're kind of the FBI knocking on your door for that one.
Yeah, better.
And so, Tracy, you mentioned a few things about the weather. You mentioned the wind, and I know that also that both of you, and I know Shane was very, and actually Shane was busy. He wasn't able to. Actually, no, it was more so that his internet. I think he was in a region that got affected by the hurricane, and so he had to go to the public library to access the internet, so he couldn't be doing this interview at this time in a public library. But I know that both of you have a solid understanding of geoengineering, especially after the research you did around Maui. So Tracy, considering you're living in this area, for someone who's a skeptic, like, I don't know about this geoengineering thing, you really think the government can control the weather, right? How would you describe, like, what did you see and experience? Like, what are the indicators that you saw that there was some sort of kind of much bigger
Something coming up.
engineering to like the situation that's happened.
Right. Well, the moment I knew that something was going to happen is when all the mainstream networks started to say that these winds were coming and there's going to be a red flag warning. They give a map. They tell you exactly what areas are going to be affected. They actually told us everything that was going to happen and who was going to be at risk. I wonder why, because the people that make these changes are the same people that are delivering the message. The meteorologists are actually under a gag order to follow these instructions. They can't go on their own and say what they really think. So their pensions and their paychecks are based on their compliance. But the night before the fires broke out, so this broke out, I think 10:23 in the morning is when the Palisades fire was first reported. The winds were really weird. The night, actually, no, the night after it started, um, I mean, California does get winds, but this was really, really intense winds. I mean, my yard was full of stuff that almost never happens. All the pots were knocked over. The pool had tree branches and a fence fell over. That's never happened to me, and I've been here since '97. So that was really when I knew something was going to happen. I didn't realize it was going to be so bad and it was going to intensify so fast. But now the Palisades are over 20,000 acres burned. I didn't even know the Palisades was that big. So we're talking like the almost the entire area. And that's just unbelievable. But there is so much research, there's so much proof, there are papers, there are experiments, all documented, patented with the government that proves that the government can control the weather. They can cloud seed, they can create low and high pressure systems, which create the wind. You can look up in the sky almost any day in LA and see the spraying of the stratospheric aerosol injections, heavily sprayed. I mean, 2, 3 planes at a time, just going back and forth. Um, Especially over the Santa Monica Bay. I have a friend that actually lives in the Palisades. Her house is okay miraculously, but she's always showing how much is in the sky. Our skies haven't been clear much at all. It's always like this white haze. I didn't realize that was artificial, but it is. But there is, I really hope this is a wake-up call to people to, do your own research. Our book has all the proof that you need. My channel, we've done videos on this showing pictures of the people that did these experiments. The weaponization of fire is a document that's filed with the US government from, I believe, the 70s or the 80s. It's been around for decades. So it's not a secret. These
Right.
companies have not been keeping this secret. But Biden comes on and says that it's ridiculous that we can change or control the weather, where it's so obvious that if you just look a little bit under the surface, you will find all the information you need. And I really hope this is going to allow more people to do that, because we cannot afford to wait any longer. Everyone needs to get up to date on what's really happening. And once you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is happening, you'll see it everywhere. There is no denying it at this point. And so, yeah, it's proven, and if you're in this area, you feel it. And I'm really having a hard time dealing with people that are not even willing to look into this, because some of them have already lost their homes. I mean, what more do you need to happen before you wake up and start speaking out? I don't know.
Exactly. Stephanie, what are your thoughts on the geoengineering with this?
You know, there are a lot of people who will study satellites, look at radars. We've already seen one of our favorite creators who studies satellites and radars. His channel or his handle is Into Thin Air.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah, I follow him.
IQ. Amazing. And so he'll be the first person to call out, "Hey, did you see that right there on the satellite?" And so he's been unfortunately seeing that in California. And that's when Tracy was tipped off. I think as long as 2 weeks ago, she did her first video that said, there's something fishy going on. It could get worse. I don't understand it. But the people who are studying things like the weather, the satellite systems, the different patterns in the skies, they're seeing some red flags. And one of the things that we've learned is that this stratospheric aerosol injection program, it's making things more flammable. And so what we saw in Lahaina, which I cannot, I'm in Aspen, Colorado right now. So I'm not in California at the moment, but we know that they're spraying continually there. There's almost not a day where, I don't know if Tracy, you can recall the last time you saw clear blue skies?
We are very rare. I think
Very rare.
Thanksgiving Day, or I think the day Trump got, I think November 5th, maybe there was a day that was very unusual, but it's almost always being sprayed.
It unusually natural, you mean? So
Yeah.
that's one of the things we did see on August 7th with regards to Lahaina is we saw there was a very thick haze. We saw sort of wind tornadoes on the water, multiple videos from different directions of the same sort of wind tunnels or tornadoes. And so all that is to say, weather engineering was in my first book, Burn Back Better, the only thing that made sense to me. And since the first book about Hawaii, it's still the scariest thing. I know that, we're looking at porcelain that isn't melting and, things that will not melt in a brush fire are melting. Seth, you mentioned engine blocks and stuff like that. So we're seeing evidence probably of directed energy, but the thing we absolutely, there's no denying that there is geoengineering and the different ways that that plays into these fires spreading fast and burning hot is undeniable.
And also, I
Yeah.
remember in Lahaina that there were insane winds. That was
Yeah.
part of it. Like, and that was just, and look, we've got a fireplace. I live in a cold region, so I've always got a fire going. And if you blow on that fire, it just lights up. And that's the whole idea of the
Mhm.
old blacksmith furnaces. The whole hand cranked and blowing into the hot embers. And so that's what it does. It creates just these wicked conditions for fire. So the
That's
question that
actually a
go
really
ahead.
good point because in Lahaina, I think the vast majority of our survivor citizen journalists, testimonials, people we've interviewed, the vast majority said that the winds were changing direction.
Oh,
Originally, the
interesting.
scapegoat for the Lahaina fire was Hurricane Dora, which is impossible, not only because of how far away it was, but because everyone we asked pretty much said that the wind was changing direction. That doesn't happen with a hurricane. And so, I'm curious, we haven't interviewed quite as many people in California, but Tracy, did you notice any besides the veracity of the wind, besides like how just how strong the wind has
Strong.
been blowing pots over in your yard, have you noticed direction changes?
So generally, and Shane explained this, but what they have to do is initially the winds can't be too strong because it will put the fire out. So you'll have like 20, 30, 40 mile an hour winds. Also, the humidity gets dropped. And in the Malibu fire, the Franklin fire, the humidity dropped to like under 10% at night. Usually it's the opposite. It usually gets more humid at night. So I don't exactly know how they did that. But once the fires start going, then the winds pick up and you get these 80-mile-an-hour gusts. And that's what carries it. And they're able to manipulate it in a way to carry it where it is. And they're also able to use the excuse that these embers are traveling miles away. I heard a fire captain say that an ember could travel 2 miles. And I'm like, I just find that hard to believe. And also, these fires are way farther from each other. So there's another ignition source. A lot of it we think might be going through the electrical systems, and smart meters might be involved. But I did notice initially it wasn't that bad. So I was thinking, okay, maybe it's not going to be that crazy. But the night after it started, that's when it got crazy. I know I've been asked to kind of time it because it kind of comes and goes, and it's very, very drastic. I mean, I'll look at the trees and they're still, and then all of a sudden the wind is gusting and dirt is hitting my face. My car was covered in dust and dirt. So that's how strong it was. I was picking up the dirt and putting it on my car. That's never happened to me. So I didn't actually time it because it's kind of hard to tell. It doesn't, it kind of starts up and it gets stronger, but that wind was definitely not something that felt normal. Also, the humidity, they somehow they are able to adjust the humidity with precision, which I don't know how they can. Also, I wish more people will ask because we know that cloud seeding can help precipitation. Why haven't they been doing that if they knew a fire was coming? They're always saying, oh, we haven't had rain for 10 weeks. Well, why don't they do something about it? They could have been doing something about it. They purposely didn't do anything about it. And right now they could be bringing rain, to help with the situation. And it's not going to rain. I can tell you that, not at least for a little while. But there's definitely something going on. And I really, really hope a lot of people are using this moment to really check themselves and say, okay, maybe I do need to change my ways, because I feel like my generation, we're told, there's no spiritual world. Everything that happens has to be tested through the scientific method, or, we can just disregard that. But there's just too much that we are missing out on by staying with that mentality. And I feel like, and I heard Tucker Carlson saying this also, is like those people that really bought into that everything is science-based, were also told you're the smartest people in the village. You're the doctors, you're the attorneys, you're the CEOs. So I think for a lot of people like that, it's very hard for them to, ask themselves, maybe I've been wrong this whole time. Maybe I've been lied to my whole life. That's a very hard pill to swallow, but we just don't have any more time to not do that. So I'm just, if there's a silver lining, I hope that all this tragedy does allow a lot more people to get to that point, because there are a lot of people like that have the means to influence others. There are a lot of people here that are like that, and they're able to change their mind. It's just hard when you've built a life on a lie. You're supporting your family like that. You have a nice life. I can understand it's hard to give that up, but it's a
Especially
matter
if
of life.
you're successful. Like, if,
Yeah,
it's one thing. I think that's a lot of people that actually end up kind of awakening to the truth. A lot of times there are people that are struggling. Like they feel the boot of
Right.
the globalists on their back, and they see it in the taxes they're paying. But you have these people that end up, they're in a $5 million home in a fancy area of California. They've done really well for themselves. It's like, it's like the camel going through the eye of the needle, right? The wealthy man going to heaven is because if you're sleeping on a mattress stuffed with money and you've got everything you want, the spiritual realm isn't that important to you. But the person that doesn't have a home or is wandering or whatever, which is why traditionally a lot of religions had wandering monks or different religious folk that had to experience that to
Yeah.
go through that awakening process. And so, and I do believe though that both of you had mentioned this, and I see it too. And I'm very much so a silver lining kind of guy. And I'm like, okay, where is the positive spin here? Because there always is. I really believe in the idea of the duality, right? The good and the evil, and they're always opposing each other. And so I do see that though, that a lot of times what we see even with COVID, like in the whole pandemic and everything, in my opinion, that's what triggered the Great Awakening was COVID.
Right.
hmm
And it,
Yeah.
like, so many people that I woke up, or sorry, that I've spoken to, and a question that I commonly ask is like, what was it for you? Right? Like, what was it for you that said, hey, something's not right? And so many of them will just say, gosh, it was COVID. I could tell something was wrong. I saw how the government handled it. And that
Right.
was what kind of corrupted their trust in the government and the institutions. And so with California, which has really been one of the liberal democratic strongholds in America for a very, very long time, it's really significant because when you see these videos of even the mayor of LA, I saw a video earlier talking about this guy. I think Elon Musk shared a video of this
Mhm.
black guy who was, kind of dressed really nice. He was kind of giving like a little kind of overview of, I think it was the mayor of LA, and how she was going back and forth from Cuba all the time, and she was involved in these very Cuban, kind of communist movements. And so
Right.
Yeah.
like what you're seeing is that if you're looking at this with half your brain turned on, even, you're seeing, oh, all these policies, like, it's like defund the police or defund the fire departments or send the equipment to Ukraine. What people are seeing is it's all of these policies, these Marxist, like, I wouldn't call them liberal or Democrat, because it's like they're actually it's like it's changed. It's not that anymore. But really, these Marxist and globalist policies, like, this is where it leaves you. And just wait until, say, tomorrow, the next day, they come out and they announce that they're going to be giving cash and gift cards to all the illegals that have suffered from this. Like, wait till you have that, where the American people that were maybe like all for immigration and keep the borders open are like, wait, like, they're getting money and food, and I lost my
Mhm.
house. It's like it always comes out and slaps you in the face.
Yeah, I really hope you're right, Seth. Um, I mean, it's a weird time in Los Angeles and in California politically, because I do feel a lot of people during the pandemic is when the separation of those two groups happened, and like you were either gung ho for it or you started questioning like this is not right. But as time goes on, as we see the children suffering from the lockdowns and everything, and now we're seeing all these vaccine injuries and people dropping dead. And I mean, I've been to 4 funerals this past year, and I hadn't been to one for a very, very long time, and not all of these people are elderly. So when those things start, happening to you in real time, I hope that means there's going to be a shift in that, because California has been very compliant and very, I guess, liberal, which, that doesn't really mean as much as it used to. But, people here really need to wake up. I know a lot of people are just leaving. Some people just can't, they have good jobs here, they have family here, they've built their roots here. But I know for sure that was the moment when I started questioning, like, the government doesn't have my best interest, and they don't have my children's best interest. And I started learning more, and it just became ever more evident. But it is still kind of weird for me to talk about it, because I do feel like there's still that other side that is like, no, you have to get your vaccine. How many
Yeah, of
did you get
course.
your second one? And it's like,
Well, it's like you said, I mean, you feel like you're a closet libertarian or a closet conservative if you have anything that is not straight like blue no matter who in California. And it almost swung 50-50. And that's something very interesting to consider. And I know that with some of my authors, with a lot of my authors actually, a lot of them are in LA specifically. They're making movies, or they're we've got video editors and sound engineers and all these people who work with my publishing company. And just because like attracts like, a lot of people who work with my company over the years have been extremely Bible believing, like Christian men and women. And what they've shared with me is that, well, we can't get into the Golden Globes, or we can't get into XYZ event without our card. You know, they found a way to get it, none of my business. But, there are a lot of people who have been complying with the system who don't believe in it. And I think the
yeah,
really exciting thing that we're seeing now is it's if you, well, they might have woken up during COVID, and now it's a real slap in the face. The other thing that I am learning, and I'm sure that the two of you have heard about a lot of the groups, I don't know if I can even name any of the names, but there are a lot of actors and actresses who have had spiritual awakenings, who want to continue playing in movies, and who do not reveal what they believe. And
yeah,
so when you see the Paris Hiltons, or when you see some of these people have their homes incinerated, um what we also have to remember on that glass half full side is that there is an active, a beautiful awakening in Hollywood. So it's another reason I don't think that God would just pew. I do think that this is just the next level of our country taking back the culture, and God is allowing us to take it back by allowing us to have a little pain until we can say, all right, wait a minute, something is off here. The people who've been controlling the messages, the communistic stuff, other political things that have been infiltrating culture through movies, those people don't have our best interest in mind. Look
Yeah.
what they just did. The people that finally put the pieces together, like Tracy and I have been doing in Sound the Alarm, and go up to the head of the snake. This is very, very positive for our culture.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Hollywood, the music industry, the mainstream media, how they're going to react. I don't think they're just going to give up their power. I think they're going to try to shift in a way that allows them to maintain that. But like, I think the jig is up. Like Hollywood is not these, gods that we used to worship and love and tune
Right.
in and have parties for the Academy Awards. Something I went on X yesterday and it said the Golden Globes were about to start, and I'm like, who the hell cares now? Like, no
Exactly.
one cares. Like the Oscars, and but I have young kids and she wanted to see Wicked, so I was like, okay. And actually we both couldn't stand for it. I said, "Do you want to leave?" She goes, "Yeah." I mean,
Oh.
it's Hollywood has become a mouthpiece for the political stances that want to be expressed, and you just can't do art like that. Like that's not how
Mm-hmm.
art works. It's not a company, it's not a money-making mechanism. Art needs to be separate from that. It needs to be separate from politics. I heard George Lucas say that early on, like, they're using these marketing tactics to promote their art, but art will die in that process. And I think we're seeing that, but I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it'll go completely the other way and everything will be independent. I think people in charge are going to make it that easy. So we'll
I
see.
agree.
Well, we killed mainstream media. There's hope for
That's
Hollywood.
true. That's true. Well, even it's funny because my wife and I are watching Landman recently, right, with Billy Bob Thornton, big production, A-list actor, and it's like they made this show for conservatives. Like it's interesting, how, like they're mocking a lot of the more kind of leftist agenda, which is interesting.
Oh,
But I want to, as we're wrapping up, I want to talk a little about Sound the Alarm, right? So this was your most recent book on the Maui situation in Lahaina. So walk us through. So, okay, the website is just themauibook.com. So themauibook.com. You can still buy it, of course. Encourage you to. But walk us through the book, what people can expect from this and what you discovered in this process.
all right. Steph, I'll let you start with like the beginning, and then I can go into a little bit of the part that I wrote.
Okay,
We
that
did
makes
more big
sense.
picture. Yeah.
Um, the first book covers the sort of the empirical evidence that there was either gross negligence and incompetence or premeditated criminal activity um, with the Lahaina fires. What we did in Sound the Alarm, though, was we connected the dots. And so in Burn Back Better, we list every bizarre thing that points to criminal negligence. And then at the end of the book, I quoted Dane Wigington and I said, the only guy that makes sense is this dude talking about weather engineering, but I don't know what's happening. I think the theories about lasers are nuts, and I don't trust anyone who told me about lasers. And so then, of course, we met Shane and Tracy, and we started to get into satellite images. We started looking at, unfortunately, bodies and different things that were burned. Tracy and I both made a trip. Tracy, were you in the burn? We
No,
got
no, I didn't
into the
get.
burn and we took pictures from this area that today, in terms of January 9th of 2025, is still basically under like this military security. You cannot go in the burn. So to write Sound the Alarm, not only did we go into the burn with someone who assisted with Burn Back Better, but in addition to that, we worked with investigation teams on the island, and scientists, engineers, meteorologists, arborists, you name it. So it's much, much, much robust than the first book. The first book, basically, it's the primer for Sound the Alarm.
Right. And so Sound the Alarm will have more proof because it happened later where there was more evidence, there was more knowledge, more things had happened to prove the land grab. We saw how the politicians reacted and how they're reacting till this day, which is basically the same thing. They're just not saying anything. So it kind of allows us to prove, I guess, what we've been saying because it had been some time. But if you read Sound the Alarm and you still don't believe believe in the globalist agenda and believe that these technologies exist, I don't know what else can.
And we didn't even talk about the manipulation with climate change, and that's for another day. But we could go on for hours about how the climate alarmism is fueling, no pun intended, some of the legislation before these fires and after these fires. I mean, right now, the only thing being built in Lahaina is basically prison camps on the hill with so much surveillance that you cannot pick your nose without something or somebody documenting it. And so when people ask me, short answer, what's the future for Lahaina? I'm like, everyone's going to live in a tiny little cabin, but it's only whoever's left because none of them can afford to stay there. And so what's funny is all the legislation that's creating this eminent domain or these restrictions on the rebuild was all built under two things: affordable housing, ironically, and climate change. And so we go into that huge history of how different communities, hopefully not your community, but that's no one in LA thought this would happen to them. Hopefully your community is not banging this climate change, climate alarmism drum, and they don't have a bunch of transit oriented corridor and smart city and they're building it under affordable housing, which is very, very sneaky. But when you dig into those bills, it's essentially smart cities.
Exactly, which again is LA. We're seeing it again.
Mm-hmm.
So pulling up the website for that, themauibook.com. I encourage folks to check it out. Purchase it. It's a way of supporting the two of you, which is something we should be doing because we need more people that are citizen journalists and that are publishing books and that are kind of fighting the information war. And I do feel like in many ways that we're winning. I've got my questions about Musk and what's happening with the new rounds of censorship on X and some of the anti-Semitism laws and some of the things that they're trying to push through, which fundamentally I think restrict our speech, which I don't like for any reason. But I do believe, though, that there is a massive awakening happening, and it gives me hope. I mean, even though there's all the craziness that's happening, we're all human and we have souls. And, no one can change that. And I think that our souls and our nature emerges amidst these tribulations and you see the best of people emerge. And so hopefully we see more of that. Do either of you have any closing thoughts as we're signing off here?
I just really hope, as someone that's been in LA for so long and has been born and raised in Hawaii, I really hope that people start taking this seriously. I know I've been saying this whole time, but my channel has all the information you could possibly need to understand this topic. It's Brush Junkie, by the way. So I've been reporting all of this, not everything, but as much as I can on that channel. And I just really hope more people open their eyes, especially people that are in this area, because I keep looking at my fire app and there's just more keep popping up, and I'm kind of starting to get a little like creeped out because yesterday one happened about 5 miles away in an area that I'm like, how did a fire start there? Like, I never thought a fire could start in a barren field. I don't know, but I just hope a lot of people start speaking out. I know a lot of people do feel this way, like the way I do, but start a conversation, start talking about it with people who normally wouldn't want to. So that's my main message.
And Stephanie, how about you?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing people can take away from this event, and I know it's really hard to process things because a lot of us are grieving, maybe lost property or hardships for friends, but please take a peek, pay attention. It's what's going on in local legislation in your community, because there was a lot of writing on the wall with Asheville and the lithium and Albemarle. Albemarle somehow showed up and sound the alarm as well. I mean, there's so many consistencies with these tragedies, with these events. And I even looked, because I'm in Colorado. I said, what minerals are in my area? Do I need to move after Asheville? Play the game offensively. Sound the alarm, figure out what's going on in your community, and get involved.
Good points. And ultimately just take responsibility. I mean, that's one of the big lessons here is prepare, look at what disasters could happen. Make sure your family understands how to do things. I mean, that's a big one. So, well, Stephanie, Tracy, thank you both so much. I know this is very last minute. I texted you both, kind of almost in the evening. So I appreciate your turnaround and being able to come on here tonight at such a late hour. And, but yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing and for being here with us tonight. And, yeah, it's been great having you.
Right.
Tremendous honor, Seth.
All right. Well, actually, just one final thing before we go, I have to mention one other sponsor, folks, which is Balance of Nature. So Balance of Nature, these guys are fantastic. Basically what it is it's little fruit and veggies, freeze dried, put into these little pills, and you eat them. So to me, it's a prepping tool. So I look at it and think, okay, if I can't get food one day, I can't feed my family, or I'm stuck eating rice and beans in my 5-gallon buckets, at least I've got this stockpile of freeze-dried fruits and veggies in these little capsules. So that's not the messaging that they tell me to say, but that's what I say, because ultimately that's why I have the product, and that's why I recommend it to you. So go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751, and promo code Seth will get you a good discount, free shipping, and I believe also they're throwing in a free kind of extra supplement for you if you use promo code Seth. So thank you for that. And for everyone that came tonight and everyone has been part of this live show, thank you very much. Take care. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful evening.